So my dear friends, before I say a few words, let's do a chant. Bismillah, Bismillah, Rahman, Rahim. We begin in the name of Allah. So, my dear friends, the topic is nobility, one's life purpose, responsibility, and all pointing to how we can be of service. So, all the great sages say, Jamal, if you really want to be of service, know who you are at your core. The Quran says, we have conferred dignity on the children of Adam. In fact, in the Quran, so beautiful is this divine breath in this molding of water and clay. Within us is that divine breath of God, of spirit, of divinity. And so precious are we that in the Quran, God asks the angels to bow to the human. Remember that, to bow to the divine spark, our Christ nature, Buddha nature, Elohim nature, Allah nature, which exists in every single human being. Which is why some of you know this poetry by heart of Rumi, who says, you are a ruby in the midst of granite. You are a ruby in the midst of granite. How long will you continue to deceive us? For we can see the look in your eyes. So please return to the root of your real self. In another utterance, Rumi says, please know you are more precious than heaven and earth. Sell yourself for not so little a price, being so precious in God's eyes. And the poetry and the metaphors continue. You know, the mystics, the Islamic mystics say, here's your condition, Jamal. Because you don't know that you're more than your personality, because you do not know that you're more than your personality, you're in this sorry state. And here's one metaphor. Knee deep in water, and yet begging for a sip of water from every passerby. Basket full of bread on your head, Jamal. Basket full of bread on your head. And you go from door to door to door begging for a crust of bread. So here are two Quranic verses for us to meditate on, you know, for the sake of titles, for the sake of power, for the sake of money. The Quran says, begs us, Jamal, and hear the exact words, do not sell your bond with God for a trifling gain, for so paltry a price. Then the Quran asks, say, what has seduced you away from your most generous instructor? Okay, just a few seconds to know that this is honoring the truth that we are more than our personality. But I have to do the work to connect with myself. Just be with that for a few seconds. So if I have that divine spark, if I am noble, it means also others are noble. The Quran says, every so way you turn is the face of Allah. Jamal, how do you treat the poor, the marginalized, the ones over whom you have power, who offer you no material advantage. Think about it. You know, just like we say, life matter. When I go to my home country in South Asia and I see how we treat those who are of a lower economic status, the poor, you know, I feel like saying this should be a movement. Poor people's lives matter. You know, it just reminded me of this story of, you might remember, some of you, of Lyndon Johnson, Vice President Lyndon Johnson. In, I think it was 1961 or 62, he went to visit Pakistan. You know, I come from a diplomatic family. It was my father first represented Pakistan when the country broke apart, then Bangladesh. But I remember I was very young, but Vice President Johnson came to Karachi, and as he was addressing the people, you know, milling around, he was quite a politician. In his Texan drawl, he said, "You all come and visit us, you hear?" And in front of him was a camel driver. And the press immediately said, Vice President Johnson has invited Bashir, this was his name, the camel driver, to the US. He was just speaking generally, but it became an issue. And for political purposes, Bashir, the camel driver, was invited to Washington, D.C., and received by Vice President Johnson. And he visited the White House, and he gave several press conferences, had dinners with all the elite there. And this was the buzz among the diplomats, which I heard as a child from my father and you know, the people in Washington, D.C., that he carried himself with such dignity, humility. He was not fazed at all by all the glitter and the dazzle. And you know, they wanted to know more about this man. They said he was a religious person. I would say he was a very deeply spiritual human being. He was so grateful for the invitation, but he knew where this invitation really came from. You know, so let's look at this wonderful metaphor. That Jamal, if somebody gives you a beautiful, expensive hat to wear, thank the small G, the giver, but don't forget to thank the big G who gave you the head to put the hat on. And the other one, you know, he was not he didn't care, he cared about people's approval, but he really felt he was accountable to something higher than human personality. Shall I call it God? So that wonderful insight we repeat all the time. Jamal, remember this: whosever approval you seek, you become their prisoner. Therefore, choose your jailers with care and deliberation. So just be with that for a few moments. If I have the divine spark, everybody else has a divine spark also. How do I treat them? Even my enemy has that noble divine spark in him or her. How do I deal with that? So once again, we repeat this insight, which we can remind ourselves again and again and again. You know, when you deal with an adversary, do what is right. Protect yourself. Don't allow yourself to be abused. Take the right action. But remind yourself, I'm against that person's behavior, not their being. Their being is sacred, holy, noble. And just this remembrance, just this discernment, just this differentiation, as I take the right action between behavior and being, has the power to shift heaven and earth. I know we've talked about it many times, but can I really take it to heart and remember it? One more point, which I'd like to bring up again and again. It is so noble to forgive your enemy. I want to repeat that saying of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that Moses said that the real true human being is someone when in a position of power forgives. But also please remember what all the great sages have said. Just forgiving can actually be harmful unless I am simultaneously, I repeat, unless I am at the same time, or even before I forgive, healing my wound, my anger, that deep feeling, that anguish within me. I have to heal that. I've got to do that work of healing it and integrating it. Otherwise, if you remember those words, if I don't do that, I am whitewashing a burning house. What else can I say? For me, what resonates when I think of the word noble? So again, I listen to the words of the sages that, Jamal, make your words noble. Remember, words become the house you live in. Apparently Hafiz, the 14th century Hafiz said that. Words become the house you live in. Your words have vibrations. Particularly in times of difficulties, in times of anger. Particularly, Jamal, can you remember to exalt your words in times of anger? You know, I love that insight by the Sufis. Jamal, in times of anger, exalt your words, not your voice. Raise your words, not your voice. It is rain that grows flowers, not thunder. It is rain that grows flowers, not thunder. The last point I want to make about being noble is ask yourself, who is a noble person? How do you know a person is noble? To me, a noble person, I'm not talking about lineage, I'm talking about the inner essence of a human being, is one who is humble and yet dignified. The person who knows that he or she is nothing because everything he or she has comes from divinity. At the same time, that person is everything. The divine spark is within me. So that all the mystics say from every tradition, true dignity, true nobility is knowing that I am nothing and everything. I love the story of this modern rabbi who really personified that dignity of everything and nothing. And so, it is said people would flock to visit him, not only to learn about his teachings, but to observe the way he tied his shoelaces, the way he cut his oranges, the way he talked to people. It shows in your bearing in a natural, organic way without being self-conscious. Okay, just be with that for a few seconds. Do I connect with my divine spark, my nobility? Okay, my life purpose. What is my life purpose? Well, one thing is very clear in a very broad way. All the traditions talk about it. Jamal, your life purpose is on this planet to become a better human being, to evolve into the fullness of who you are, to move beyond your ego, which you need, your personality, which is nothing more than a bundle of conditioned reactions to life circumstances Go beyond that to connect with your divine spark, with that noble divine spark. If you stay at the level of your personality, Jamal, you will just be living a life of what people call manageable depression. Andrew Harvey says, it's like if you just are stuck at the level of personality, it's as if you're being chased by geese. And you'll never be able to really enjoy the marvel, the beauty, the enchantment of life. Remember what Hafiz said, the 14th century? He said, you know, at your deathbed, your greatest regret might be, oh universe, I did not kiss you enough. I was stuck at the level of my personality with my dramas, melodramas. I enmeshed myself in trivialities. I never got to know who I really am. And the other reason how critical it is, this life purpose of connecting with my divine noble spark, is because, you know, all the phenomenal issues of our time, social justice issues, environmental degradation, it is obligatory, it mandates us to exalt ourselves at a higher level. As you've heard that cliche again and again, you cannot solve a problem at the level of the problem. You've got to rise above it. Okay, but the question is, now beyond that umbrella level, at a personal level, what is my life purpose? What is your life purpose? You know, there are many insights, but put simply, the basic insights are, of course, you've heard this many times, follow your bliss, follow your passion. The truth is, we're usually following somebody else's bliss or hearsay or advice, but not ours. So the first thing is to become aware of what is your, it's called passion, your bliss. And if you're doing some job which you don't like very much, don't curse that job because it gives you the money to pay your rent, to pay for your upkeep while you're exploring what really splashes in your heart. And be flexible. Experiment, explore, try to find out. And the sages say, while you're doing that, don't forget your spiritual practices. Be in attendance at the divine court. Don't forget to be of service. Be a lamp, a lifeboat, or ladder according to your capacity as you're exploring your passion. And most important of all, don't curse the job you're doing right now, which supports you. And Rumi gives us advice about life purpose. He says, metaphorically, there is no need to seek water. What is my life purpose? Increase your thirst. Increase your thirst. Don't seek water. Increase your thirst, and water will gush from above and below. And so, as you're pursuing, determining what is my life purpose, develop this vibration, this attitude of being of service continuously, according to your capacity. So as I'm talking to you, I'm thinking, should I or should I not tell you the story which you've heard many times? I love stories. So once again, I'll quote the story of the mullah lying, relaxing under the huge mulberry tree and reflecting on, I wonder what my grand mission is of life is. How can I be of service to the world? And he's kind of sleeping with his back against the trunk of the tree. And if you remember, he sees in front of him these tiny creepers with huge watermelons on the ground. And suddenly an idea strikes him. Oh, wow. Here I'm being of service to divinity. He says, God, excuse me. I want to tell you something. And, please don't mistake my words. We all need improvement in our work, in our thinking. God, there's something wrong with your feng shui in your cosmic design. Out there, I see those tiny, thin creepers with those huge watermelons. And here I am under this huge mulberry tree with these tiny berries, not symmetrical. Thank you, God. You don't have to thank me. We all have room for improvement, as I said. And suddenly, as you know, the story goes, a tiny berry from the tree is released from the branch and lands on his head, and he gets his greater insight. What if that berry had been a watermelon? Let me think again how I can be of authentic service. Okay, I'm looking at the time, my friends. So the last one, and I'll be short on this one, is about responsibility. What is my responsibility? You know, in the Quran, Allah says to the human being, I have appointed you my vice regent, my ambassador, my ambassadress, to enjoin the good and forbid the evil. And I've placed upon you something very special called the amanat, the trust. In the Quran, it is said that God first offered the trust to the mountains, to the heavens. They refused, they were scared. But the human took it. And there's a tongue-in-cheek verse, the humankind was very foolish. So when we human beings come on earth, Rumi says we arrive a little bit tipsy. We have no mission mandate. We have no idea who we are, where we came from. And we read all these things in the holy books. You know, you have that noble divine spark. The angels bowed to you. You're the vice regent of God. Upon you has been bestowed the amanat. It's very confusing. So I love the poetry. We arrive here a little bit tipsy. And after a certain time, we realize this drunkenness must have happened in some other tavern. This drunkenness must have taken place in some other tavern. So ask yourself, what is my responsibility on planet Earth at this stage of my life? Only you know. You've got to take care of yourself. You've got to take care of your family. And by the way, when I say family, I always think of this sad situation of Gandhi, who I have the greatest love, respect, admiration for. He had a wonderful relationship with his wife. He was father to millions, hundreds of millions of children in India, but he didn't have time for his own children. He did not have time for his own children. One child died as an adult, died of drunkenness, the other out of syphilis. I say that with a sense of deep admiration for this man, but realizing we have our human failings, and a lesson to me, please do not neglect your own family. The Quran says, don't neglect, and please take care of your relatives who need help, of the poor, the marginalized. We know that, but ask yourself, what am I doing about it? It's my responsibility to be just. The Quran says, be just. This is closest to being God conscious. And with justice comes mercy. So I want to tell this story, a true story. In Indonesia, there was a judge, I still remember his name, Marzuki. And in front of him was this grandmother who had stolen tapioca from a plantation. And the plantation owner was so angry that this elderly lady, she stole tapioca from my plantation. And she explained, she said, I'm very poor. I don't steal, but my grandson is so ill and I have no money, no food in the house. And his parents are also sick. That's why I stole tapioca to feed my grandson so he wouldn't die. The plantation owner said, but she must be punished because what she did was wrong. You've got to the scales of justice. And the judge said, yes, I must. You're fined. You got to pay $100. And if you cannot pay that, 2.5 years in jail. Of course, she's so poor, she can't even afford, maybe even $1. And she cried and cried. And of course, then the judge, what he did next, showed his sense of nobility, his responsibility. He had a Muslim cap on. He took his cap off and he put $100 in there. Then he said, I, as a judge here, I'm fining each one of you. I'm giving a fine to each one of you present here because you allowed a child to starve. You forced a grandmother to steal. I'm saying this with compassion, but you're also responsible. We're all in this together. Each one of you in my hat put $5.50. They gathered, I hear, $200. The $100 fine was paid, and she was given the surplus of $100. A story of being just with mercy. I'm looking at the time, and I'm realizing I should make just one last point, my favorite point about responsibility. Jamal, can you be responsible of taking care of Mother Earth? It's urgent. What are you doing yourself? I can spout words like the Prophet Muhammad said, the earth is like your mother, honor her, protect her. I've got to reduce my carbon footprint. I've got to make every effort to simplify my lifestyle. I have to support all those environmental activists and engage if I can. If not, support them. And then from a spiritual perspective, I love to do this every day. I ask for forgiveness for how we have exploited Mother Earth. And I hear from the sages, I believe that so much, it really matters. I express gratitude. Again, the sages say, it really matters. They are conscious beings. And then something very important I take as a responsibility, the sages say, teach others, especially children, that nature is the holiest of manuscript. Every lesson you need to learn, you can learn by being in nature, observing nature, learning from nature. So I was just thinking the other day, I've shared so much about the metaphors of nature. Which ones do I remember particularly well? Because I get feedback from people who have heard this. So one person said, I used to be such an exclusivist. My religion is the only way. But the metaphor about nature which you shared really changed my life. What was that metaphor? You know it. All the rivers flow into the ocean. Jamal, you might be following one river. Please do not mistake the river for the ocean. About interfaith, I hear several people, they say, I love what Rumi says about diversity. The branches of the tree are swaying differently in the wind, but they're all connected at the roots. Not too long ago, a person came and said, this teaching about honoring your suffering, your pain, not to run away from it, but to tremble with it, be present with it, little by little. Of course, don't run towards pain and suffering, just don't run away from it, but to be with the pain, the anguish, maybe with the help of your friends, your community, but to tremble with it little by little. He said, I love that metaphor. But the mystics say, have you not noticed that fruits never grow on the trunk of trees? Fruits never grow on the trunk of trees. They grow on the branches, on the limbs of the trees, because to receive the blush of the beloved, They need to tremble and quiver in the breeze. Okay, just one more. I hear a lot about humility. The sea is the sea. The sea is the sea because it lies lower than the Can I be humble? So I must end this now, but by saying that this is our prayer that may we all be of service to God's creation by connecting with our divine spark, our nobility, realizing our life purpose to transform our ego, open up our heart, and to take responsibility in really serving God's creation. Okay, I'll make up the time by doing a short meditation. Please close your eyes. And just gently focus on your nostril. Just be present with your breath as you inhale and as you exhale, just this much. Okay, letting go of this gently, eyes still closed. Focus on the lowest part of your spine, the first chakra, the sacrum area, and make an intention to send a beautiful cord of divine light, any color, flowing from the first chakra, lowest part of the spine, going down, way down, deep, deep, deep into Mother Earth, connecting us to the womb of Mother Earth. And we feel supported, rooted, a sense of belonging. And let go of this. And this time, focus on the crown of your head, the crown chakra, you might say, the crown of your head, and make an intention to send a beautiful cord of divine light, any color, flowing upwards from the crown of the head, going up, higher, higher, even higher, piercing those mysterious realms and connecting us to the heart of heaven. Feel that, please. And now letting go of that. And this time, focusing on your heart. That's a magical space, the heart. Our heart has been yearning to connect with us, bond with us. If it pleases you, touch your heart, feel your heart, envelop your heart with your consciousness from the palm of your hand, feeling a bonding with the heart. And then listen to this beautiful insight where Spirit, God, Divinity says to each one of us, Beloved one, God says, Spirit says, I cannot be contained in the space of the earth. I cannot be contained in the space of the heavens, but I can be contained in the space of the pure, loving heart. Divine heart is inside human heart. Spirit, God is outside of us and inside of us, inside our heart. So now make an intention to open up your human heart to divine heart. Open up through intention your human heart to divine heart to receive the glow of presence within you. Feel an inner spaciousness. And the last step, remove your hand from your heart and make an intention from the depth of your heart, the wellspring of divine light, love, healing. Make an intention to send out light and love pouring in an outward, expansive direction. Feel the light from this magical, infinite space of the heart flowing out of you in an outward, expansive direction. And now, as I do a chant, at the end of the chant, at your convenience, gently opening your eyes. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. At your convenience, ever so gently opening your eyes